Welcome to Crushgasm, the podcast dedicated to the highs and lows of crushes. From their first to their worst, we're going to cover them all with a cascade of characters, including our guest today, someone who's ready to teach the world to never fear jumping in, DeAnn Wiley, an artist, lover, thinker, and challenger who is here to talk not only about her latest book coming out later this spring, Double Dutch Queen, but also her crush on a fictional couple, none other than Dwayne and Whitley Gilbert from a different world. DeAnn, how are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
Good, I'm good. This is the first time I think we've done a couple, so I'm really excited because I know fictional couples, a lot of people hold them close to near and dear to their heart, like they are part of that couple. So I'm excited to explore this. But before we jump into it, can you tell everyone where they can find you online?
Yeah, so my handles across all social media is the Art. And that is for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, just to make it easy for everybody. So Art everywhere.
Right, pretty easy. I like when you get your name everywhere, like no one takes it. That's always the best.
Yeah.
I have to add something to it, like like a little dash or something. I always get really upset by that. So we're gonna go back to the beginning. You're 22 and binge watching A Different World. I think just using the term binge watching, I'm going to assume this marathon viewing took place in maybe the last decade or so.
Yeah, so I believe I was in undergrad, like right at the end of undergrad. So what is that? I graduated in 2017. So somewhere around that area.
And you're binge watching this. You said this binge was the result of a serious heartbreak. Are you always someone who leans on TV when you need to sort of disconnect and clear your head with maybe entertainment?
Yeah, I am. I'm a person who kind of so it was a it was a really bad heartbreak. My fiance cheated on me. So I just really but we still lived together. So it was like super awkward. So I just kind of like put myself in front of the TV to kind of like block out everything around me. So I didn't have to like see them coming and going, kind of like, ignoring them to, like to escape. And so the TV kind of gives you like a focal point and you can just kind of get on the couch, put a cover over you, and kind of just zone out a little bit. So, and nobody's gonna like judge you for like crying in the middle of an episode that's like reminds you, or like when Willie and Dwayne is getting married, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna get married now because this man is a cheater. So, it's nobody's gonna like judge you or anything like that. You can just kind of like watch your show and kind of go through the motions with the characters and relate it to like what you're experiencing and stuff, and it's just you and that kind of no judgment zone.
I'm so sorry that happened. That had been really difficult to go through. I can't. Oh, that would be horrible. And to still live and have to avoid. I I had to avoid a roommate for a minute because we were having some drama. But oh, I can imagine an ex fiance after that. I'd have been
Yeah.
like locked up.
He's okay now. We were very, very young. We were 21 when we got engaged, and we've known each other since we were in seventh grade, where we grew up with each other. So just wasn't a good time. He was off in college, I was in college somewhere else, and it's like the whole, you're literally meeting all these new people, all these excited people, and it was just not a good time to be engaged, I would say, personally. And if I could go back in time, I would probably not be engaged in undergrad for sure. So
I'll wait till I get that the diploma in hand. Books then. Was this your first time ever like jumping into the Hillman College realm, or had you seen the show before?
well, so I had seen like clips and stuff, or like like memes, like gifs and stuff where Willie and Dwayne were in there. Then it's silly, but Nicki Minaj, when her first mixtape came out, and she says, I was on a plane with Dwayne, you can call me Whitley, I go to Hillman. That was like one of the first times that I really like heard about Whitley and Dwayne, but I never was like, I wasn't really like interested in the show as far as like, oh, what, let me go and binge watch the show, or like, and I think that was like before binge watching even became a thing for real. But yeah, so this was my first time seeing it from start to finish and like watching the whole thing all the way through.
Well, yeah, for 22 and 2017, I don't imagine A Different World is like on your radar.
Mhm.
So it is a bit, it's in the pop culture zeitgeist, but I don't think as big as maybe like A Living Single or even
Mhm.
Martin. But it's definitely there, but it's not a show I automatically think of unless I was maybe Gen X. That's more their thing. So
Mhm.
kudos for finding that. Um, so you sit down and you watch the show, and in the end, you're crushing on both Dwayne and Whitley. But did one start before the other?
So when it first started, I really liked Dwayne because he was funny. And Whitley, I don't know how familiar you are with the show, but Whitley, you know, she's kind of annoying and stuck up and kind of really into herself, and she's one of those characters where you kind of like love to hate her in the beginning, and then she has like this wonderful character arc, and this character development, and then by the end you're kind of like rooting for her. So definitely Dwayne Wayne first. I just thought he was so funny. He's a little cutie, you know, like, you know, I like my black men. And so I thought he was attractive, funny, and I didn't really understand why everybody was playing in his face. Like he was a little goofy, but he wasn't like, I didn't think he was like ugly or anything like that. But if you watch the show, they just act like he is just the goofiest, just most unattractive, kind of like lame, you know, freshman kind of, yeah.
He's a nerd. He's glad
Yeah.
that's the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Very much that. Yeah, I remember but like looking back at him, I'm like, he's not as like Urkel, as like
Yeah.
nerdy like that. He just has glasses. He seems
Yes.
cool to me. And I think he's a style icon because of his glasses.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the crush on both characters maybe wouldn't have been as significant if they'd never gotten together? Like they were just like friends on the show?
Yes, for sure. Because I think one of the biggest parts of my crush is like their dynamic with each other and them going through like, you get to kind of like watch them from undergrad all the way until they're like adults and they're like living on their own. They're out the dorms and stuff, and they have other partners in between there, and the way that they navigate that. So that was like part of my crush, was like both of their personalities and how they kind of mix and mingle together. And I don't think whenever they were like dating other people, I was just like, ugh, like I can't, like I want them to be back together. So I definitely think that it would not have been the same if they weren't like a couple together.
Yes, I read that. I know Dwayne liked Denise in the first season, and then I read that he was supposed to be with Marissa Tomei's character, but both of them ended up leaving after the first season. So naturally, he had to move on.
Yeah.
Have his girls around. You mentioned Whitley being, a lot. You could definitely hate this character. I can see that, but Jasmine Guy plays her so charming. Thinking back, what do you think was like the best thing the writers did to cement her as one of the most like notable sitcom characters?
I think that I think the fact that they let her be annoying was kind of like what, like everybody just accepted that it was Whitley and that she was going to get on your nerves, but they still brung her around. They still hung out with her. They still, she was still like a part of the community. So I think that kind of made it so that it's like, sometimes people get on your nerves, but you don't hate them, or like you don't have to like shun them. Like, like it was just really kind of authentic, like acceptance of her for who she was, and kind of just like this bougie stuck up girl, but who was still a part of like all of the step shows, and who was a part of the singing groups. Like she still was included, and they didn't make it seem like her annoyance was like this huge character flaw that they had to get rid of. So I think that was a really good thing that they did by kind of integrating her and making it know that, yeah, people thought that she was annoying, but they also accepted that she was annoying, and they still like loved her.
I wonder if Jasmine Guys Whitley, had any inspiration to, do you watch Abbott Elementary?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's anything like Janine, because they do play Janine like she's supposed to be the little, like, kind of annoying little new teacher to Ava's cool girl. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it.
That's a really good kind of comparison. I like that. Janine she is one of those characters where it's like, girl, I love you, but what's going on? So yeah, I like that.
I also think there's a lot of significance in what Dwayne and Whitley had, just in terms of like TV history, because I think up until that point, the world maybe had like a few instances of healthy Black relationships on TV. From like, I think of the Jeffersons, I think of Uncle Phil, and Aunt Viv, and then you have the predecessor of A Different World, The Cosby Show. Would you say Dwayne and Whitley deserve more flowers in that regard, like being this iconic Black couple of TV?
Yeah, so I definitely do. And one of the reasons that I really like them is I'm not anymore, but I was a therapist. I have my bachelor's and master's in psychology. And when we are like looking at TV couples, Whitley and Dwayne has one of the more healthy kind of, even when they were in the breakups, you of course you have like the hijinks and stuff with them, like trying to make each other jealous, or them trying to, or them having their own jealous moments and stuff like that. But in terms of communication and working through different life cycles with each other, working through different like hardships and stuff, like when Willie didn't have a job and all of this, when the Dwayne and why am I blanking on his best friend's name? Oh my gosh. So the two best friends, Dwayne and them, they kind of had a falling out. So there was I think they had a lot of healthy moments that showed them working through a lot of things, and there wasn't a lot of like, I would say there wasn't any really moment where you're just like, oh, red flag, like, oh, red flag, like, oh, they shouldn't be doing that, or this is a terrible example to set for, people watching the show and stuff. And I think that they don't get a lot of credit for working from undergrad, where that's a time where you're typically really bad at relationships, and all the way into their adulthood, to them actually ending the show with them having a baby and stuff like that. And throughout that whole process, they worked with each other in the different phases that they had throughout their life, and it was generally done in a really positive and kind of healthy way. So I definitely think that they could get more flowers for that, and for being just like this Black couple who doesn't really have that much of a controversy, like there's not that, like Martin and Gina. Martin was really sexist and a little bit kind of patronizing to Gina, and didn't want her to work, and wanted Gina to be kind of submissive and stuff. We don't have those same kind of tropes in Dwayne and Whitley's relationship.
I love Martin. It is one of it's my husband's favorite show, but it is like the physical comedy of that show is so good. It reminds me of I Love Lucy, which is my favorite TV show ever. But watching it back as an adult, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I felt there were some things that were like, maybe I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it was the time. It was the time. Oh my God. Like him and Pam, as bad as he was to her, it's still so funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think Martin is actually one of my 90s shows. It is really hilarious. Like, it's laugh out loud funny, but it is, if you really look at the dynamics of the relationships, there's like so many instances where you're like, ooh, why did she stay with him? Like, I would have left I would have left him, and she was just she rolled with him. She had a couple of moments where she kind of was like, all right, this is enough, but he still managed to reel her back in every time. So you kind of get like that little toxic, like, back and forth, but in a way where it's like Martin is like, well, I'm gonna ignore you until you come back to me, kind of thing, like where there's this like mind game kind of situation going on. So I definitely hilarious for the times, but if you're like really analyzing it, which most people aren't, which is a good way to enjoy media, but sometimes if you really analyze it, they have a little bit of a toxicness going on there.
But Whitley and Dwayne didn't, and that's something you liked about them, the healthy relationship. And you said this kind of the first time you saw that. But did you mean like in life or just in TV?
No, in life. So so during this time, I also was going to therapy to like help me work through the breakup like in a healthier way, because I had a history for me. I realized that I had a history of just like not really handling breakups well. And that came from watching my mom, who was in a lot of domestic violence relationships, also not handle her breakups well. And then my aunties, their husbands, there was like, infidelity. There's the stories about like your family and like how they got together, or like what they're going through, but it's kind of like hush hush, like nobody talks about it kind of thing. But that it ain't all roses and flowers and all that stuff. And so for me, I really, when my therapist asked me like, okay, well, what is an example of a healthy relationship in your life, I was just like, I really genuinely was like, I can't think of anything, because all of my mom's relationships had domestic violence, and those relationships were very tumultuous, of like having guns pulled on her and like seeing her have a gun pulled on her and stuff, like that level of domestic violence. And so I really couldn't think of anything. And then she asked me, well, what about like a fictional couple? And I kind of thought about it for a little bit, and I was just like, Dwayne and Whitley. I would say that if I had to think of a relationship that I would be okay having that relationship, I would be okay with that one, because there wasn't a lot of, they had their moments where they were like on and off, but even in those moments, they still remained friends. And they still were in, each other's lives in the appropriate capacity. And they had their friend group was the same friend group, so they still had to like know how to live with each other. They were still on the same campus. At one point they were living across the hall from each other, so they managed the breakups even if they were kind of having a hard time and they were jealous and stuff. They talked to the other people about it. It wasn't like I'm jealous so I'm gonna mess with you, or I'm gonna cause issues for you. It was kind of like, I'm jealous so I'm gonna go over here and talk to Jaleesa about it, like kind of thing. So I was just like, I think Dwayne and Whitley would be my fictional couple that I think that if I had to model a relationship after, it would be that one.
And since 2017, has there been any other fictional couple that have come close to kind of emulating what you saw in Dwayne and Whitley?
I think I'm trying to think about all the shows. I've been in my reality TV era for a little bit now. Watching all the Love Is Blinds and all of that mess. So sitcom wise, I would have to think about that. I would have to kind of think about what shows that I've been watching, but I can't think of anybody right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there though, because I have not I watch TV, but I tend to watch the same shows over again, and I wouldn't say that my TV knowledge is like very vast.
I understand. If you're like watching reality or that's a good way to turn off the mind too. I have RuPaul's Drag Race. That's my one and only reality show I watch, but I watch like all the like US versions. I watch like the international versions. Like, it's obsessive.
Yeah, I love RuPaul's Drag Race, and all of the new dating shows they have so far are all such a hot mess. I wouldn't even Love Is Blind, Married at First Sight, all of the little Netflix shows, like they're all just so just car crashes waiting to happen, all of them.
And you can't look away. You can't look away.
Yeah.
Usually like for like Kardashians or something, if I go to visit and she's watching something like that, like it sucks you in even if you do not care. Like during COVID, I tried to get into like Real Housewives of Atlanta, and I was like, I got like 5 or 6 in, and I was like, I know how deep I can go into this. I'm gonna stop myself now though, because Kim Zolciak started singing, and I was like, I gotta peace out right now.
Oh yeah, I still watch this. I still watch Housewives of Atlanta. It's nothing going on. You're not missing anything.
I love the Nene Leakes, like the reaction meme.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she's just, that is, if you have to do a top 10 reality TV personality, she's up there.
Oh, for sure.
York from Flavor of Love, like Miss Juicy from Atlanta, Little Women of Atlanta. They're all a lot from Atlanta. Like, that gives us a lot of reality. I just realized.
I love Miss Juicy.
Oh, my queen. Like, my husband doesn't like those kind of shows, but I showed him Little Women of Atlanta when it was on, and him and his roommate were obsessed.
Yes, I love it.
Don't watch at your house. Don't watch at your apartment. You gotta come over here and watch with us. When she threw was it Minnie's mom threw or Minnie? Yeah, her mom threw the chicken wings at
The
Miss.
chicken wings. Oh my gosh. That was so funny. I'm like, why are you throwing chicken wings at somebody?
Oh,
I was really sad when Minnie passed away. Uh yeah, that was like a sad. I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
RP to the drama of
Yeah.
when she pretended to have relationships and
Yeah, she was a complicated little person, but she was still a person. So it
uh,
was really sad when she passed away.
them in LA were like my two favorites. New York had a lot of cocky little women of New York was a little cocky for me. But back to Dwayne and Whitley, if those two were a real couple, do you think that they would still be together in 2025?
I do. I, I think they would still be together because they had such a strong foundation and they already went through so much stuff. Like, how can you break up with somebody who came to your wedding when you was about to marry another person and was like, I'm no, you need to marry me. Like, baby, please. Like, that's like my favorite part out the whole show is when Dwayne is like coming down the aisle and Whitley is just like looking and he's just like, baby, please. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so, it's like obviously you don't want it to happen because she was about to marry somebody else, but she didn't love him like she loved Dwayne. And so for me, I think how can you break up with someone? How can you end up a wedding, a marriage that has such a long foundation, a strong foundation, and then has this moment where your man comes and he's like, no, I'm going to fight for you. Like, I cannot let this happen. I can't lose you again. How can you, what do you do after that? What do you do after that? I think they would still be together. I think they would be a cute little old couple with some kids.
Now, before we move on and talk about what you have going on, I'd like you to use your imagination. Say you're a student, you're at that college back in 1988. What's your plan of action when it comes to the dating scene?
Oh my gosh. I think that I would do the complete opposite of what I did in my real life. I would date around. I would kind of like find myself as a relationship person, like really know like who I am in a relationship and just have more freedom with dating because in my real life I was, oh my gosh, this is so crazy, but I was engaged twice in undergrad. I was a serial monogamous. My brain was just like marriage like that is the number one goal for relationships is that you're supposed to get married. So when I went to undergrad I was engaged. I got engaged when I was like 18. It was the most BS thing ever, but it did happen. And then I was together with that person, they cheated, and then we ended up breaking up. And then, like a year or two later, I got engaged again. So I was engaged during what is the year before your senior year? Junior year? So I was engaged for junior year, and then all of that happened, and I just was only single. The only time I was ever single in undergrad was the last like few months of my senior year. So if I had to go back and I was in this fictional world, I was just in at Hillman College, I would date. I would be more about myself, finding out what I like, my hobbies, like what kind of relationship do I want, what kind of person do I want to have to be in a relationship with, exploring myself and kind of just I think I would make it more about myself. I think I would make my dating situation more about myself and less about like you have to find this one person and that's going to be your person and you cling on to them and you don't let them go. Y'all get married and then that is forever. I think I would definitely not go that route again.
Say you're at freshman orientation, you see Wayne, you see Whitley. Who are you like gravitating towards at orientation?
Well, as my 32-year-old self, Whitley, because I'm with women now, so I don't even date men anymore. And but then my younger self, who's kind of figuring it all out, would definitely gravitate towards Dwayne.
Have you do you keep up with them? Do you like see what they're doing? Like,
Yeah, their social medias and like see what shows and stuff they're on. I wish they were like on more stuff. But the last thing that I seen, I think Whitley, she was in a few movies on oh my gosh, first no, she was just a mom on the show with the four girls. Is where are they at? Got Megan Good on it. Do you know what that show is called? Oh, Harlem. Did you see Harlem?
never seen that one.
Okay, so Harlem is a show that was that it literally just ended. They had their last season, but it has like Megan Good on it. It's about four black women who live in Harlem, and it's kind of about their life and their friendship. Whitley. So she plays the one of the characters' moms on there. That's the like most recent thing that I can think of that I've seen either one of them on. And I've seen them in a few movies, and they were on an episode of Casey Undercover together on Disney, where they made like a little joke about a different world, which was really cute. So I keep up. I try. I do. I'll be looking. I'll be watching.
Good. Well, we're done with the crushes. We're gonna get to you. You mentioned it. You have a degree in something similar to what I wanted to do, and that's a master's in counseling psychology. I wanted to be a school counselor, but when I saw what you had to get a master's for it, I was already out of school and was like, "Am I ready to go back? Probably not." So, but I do want to know what led you towards like illustrating and writing.
So I would say, so for illustration wise, so I've always done art. I've always only seen it as kind of like a hobby or like something to do for fun. I never really looked at it as like career wise, because career is something that was serious. Yeah. So I've always done art, but then like so I think when I was in undergrad, I joined a sorority. And I was what they call the sunshine chair. And I was basically in charge of like making all of the girls' birthday gifts and like stuff like that. And that's when I really kind of like got back into painting and stuff. Because I was like, oh, I'll just like paint stuff because I know how to do art. But I hadn't been doing it for a long time because I was like more focused on school and like becoming a psychologist. So once I got back into it, it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I felt like it was like this is what I've been missing. Like it was just such a way for me to like reflect, like calm myself, like regulate my emotions, express myself. Like I kind of got back into like this creative way of thinking instead of like always thinking like, okay, I need to get a good job, graduate, get good grades, graduate, get a good job, make money, take care of myself. Like instead of thinking of this very like linear serious way, it kind of opened my world back into like this creative way of thinking. And so I started doing art and selling like art around campus to people, doing portraits and stuff like that for them. And then I just kind of continued it, and I was doing acrylic portraits. That was like my whole big thing. When I first started off was doing portraits. I love drawing like faces and people, and so I was doing realism portraits, and then I started like making little like Valentine's Day paint with me kits and selling those. And I kind of just like, then I started doing graduation caps, and it kind of just like took off that way. But I still was viewing it as like a side hustle or like a backup option. I still wasn't seeing it as my career. So then come COVID 2020, I was right in the beginning of like started to make a website because I was getting more people like ask me to do like art for them. And so I was like getting a website and started to sell prints and stuff like that. But when COVID came, I was just doing my first showing in Ypsilanti of like having my art at this gallery, and it basically like I put all the art up on the walls and stuff, and the next day it was the shutdown, so nobody could come see my art and stuff. It was like I was like, oh, I'm so excited, this is my first gallery showing, and then next day it's like, oh, the world is shut down and your art is going to be collecting dust and nobody's going to see it. So I was just like, I have to find another way to get my art out there. So that's when I started posting more on social media, and kind of just took off from there. And the way that I got into children's illustrating is following I started following other artists online, and one of them was Vashti Harrison, who was the illustrator of Hair Love. I don't know if you're familiar with that book by Matthew Cherry, but I started following her, and I just fell in love with like the magical elements of her art and for children, and I was just like, that is something that I want to do. And so then I started kind of like leaning towards shifting more towards doing children's book illustrations. And then when I got an agent, I'm sorry, this is such a long answer. When I got an agent who saw me on Twitter, because I was going viral so much for my art, he contacted me. He was like, we love this. The publisher also saw it, and they were like, oh, we want to offer you a book deal to illustrate, and if you do you write? And I was just like, I write, but it was never anything. Now writing was all the way off my radar. I was just more to the illustrating, but they were like, we want to do a book deal, and we want you to write it because we feel like you have a story to tell. And so that is how I got into, that's a long version of how I became how I got into the publisher, or how I got into children's illustrations and writing and stuff.
I was looking at some of your pieces, and it reminded me a lot of like Harlem Renaissance art and the Snowy Day book.
Yeah.
Mr. Keats. And I want to know, was there any like cartoons you like growing up? Because I know a lot of people that draw, usually they were really big into like maybe anime or just animation in general, like Disney and stuff like that. So I was just curious if you had any like cartoon inspirations.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to draw like a lot of like Tigger and Betty Boop and stuff like that. Not so much anime, but more so like the Disney cartoons. I used to be really into that. But I'll be honest though, it really didn't. I wouldn't say that was anything that kind of like inspired me to do art. I started drawing faces of like just like making up girls and like drawing their faces and drawing their hair and stuff. And that is more so of like, I really liked drawing people. Like I've always liked drawing people and drawing faces, and I would just like draw people in my class, and I drew like my cousins, and so portraits was my really big thing for many years. When I first started, I almost did exclusively only portraits.
Which is, I think I watched like the tattoo, what's it called? Whatever the tattoo reality show, Ink Master. And I know portraits is often the hardest thing for a lot of artists to do. So
yeah, it's definitely a skill to it. I enjoy it. I'm a realism portrait artist, so I like to make it look exactly like the face. But if you do more like stylized stuff, you're able to kind of like literally put your own style, and it doesn't matter so much if it looks exactly like the person, then that seems to be a little bit more fun. But I'm like very tedious. I like to get down to the last mold that you have on your face. I'm like, I need to make sure I have it in the exact right spot, and I love doing that.
you mentioned your agent was like, you're not just going to illustrate it, you're going to write it because you have, I think you have a story to tell. Is Double Dutch Queen, your book coming out last I checked in May 2025, is that a personal story that you're telling about a little girl who maybe is dreading going to the family's house because she's going to have to do double dutch?
Yeah, so it is. It's so one of the biggest pieces of art that I did was called With My Cousins Them, and it's an illustration of me and depiction of me and my cousins double dutching in front of my grandma's house. The two girls that are double dutching in the middle is not me. I'm in the back doing the character that I kind of modeled as myself is the one who was doing the hula hoop. And so the reason that is because I actually never learned how to double dutch because I was terrified of doing it. It was hard. I was always scared I was going to get hit with the rope. I thought that everybody else was doing it was sweet and they may look easy, but the one or two times that I did try, I was just completely intimidated by the whole process. And so that is where Double Dutch Queen kind of that stems from. And part of it is this kind of, when everybody else around you is doing something and you don't want to be the person who's like doesn't know how to do it, and you want to be good at it, and it kind of puts this pressure on you. So the book is about like learning double dutch, but at the same time it's like unlearning the idea that you have to be perfect at everything. When you try new stuff, it's okay to fail at it, it's okay to get it wrong, but the most important thing is just like trying and like picking yourself back up after you fall. So it's definitely a personal story to myself, and kind of a lesson to myself as I was writing it, is to just be okay, because I still need that lesson now as a 32-year-old Black woman, is to allow myself to make mistakes, allow myself to not always have the right answer, to jump into new worlds and new avenues of things, and not be have to instantly be good at it in order for it to be something that I want to do. So it definitely was definitely a personal story.
I do like that about the book. It's very much like facing your fears, trying something new. And I feel like no matter how much we think we progress in society, people, especially kids, always need that message in particular. Did you have a book like that when you were growing up, one that like moved you to take a chance or just inspired you to dream big in general?
I don't think so, because I actually feel like I skipped picture books. I'm sure I probably read them, but I don't remember. My earliest memories of reading were middle grade books, and so Cam Jemison and Amelia Bedelia and stuff like that. And those books I think was more so teaching me about like the creativity of just expressing yourself. And I don't think that I would say that any. And then I went into reading Gothic chapter books with VC Andrews and stuff, which is a whole nother world of reading. But yeah, I don't think so. I think I was more so of a when I read books, I was more so into like really dark themes. Unfortunately, I wish the books that I'm writing now are books that I'm just like, if I had kids, or if I was a kid again, what messages would I want to see in the books? And so that's why I write. That's where I write from right now.
Well, VC Andrews, if you want to get dark, if you don't know,
Oh gosh.
if you like soap operas and darkness, go here, because VC Andrews the queen of that. I love VC Andrews when I was in middle school. That was my girl.
Listen, I shouldn't have been reading, but I definitely was. I definitely every VC. I've read everything that has come out from VC Andrews. So I again thinking back on my with my grown up brain, I probably should not have been reading VC Andrews in 6th and 7th grade, but we get our hands on things.
Grandma gave me her whole collection when I was
young. I had a neighbor that was actually next door to me when I was in the 8th grade, and they had a whole I went over randomly, just went to their house one day with their daughter, and they had a whole collection of VC Andrews books, and they're just like, oh, we do not even read those. Like I think mom was like, I don't even remember how I got those, and she literally gave me all of them, and I was so happy. It was probably one of the one of the happiest days of my little life, was getting a whole big collection of VC Andrews books. But again, should have been reading them. I would say that's a little bit older content. But yeah, VC Andrews, she's a very dark lady.
And people that don't know, Flowers in the Attic, to me, not the best one. My favorite is Heaven. That's my favorite series.
I like Heaven. Heaven was a good one. I think Heaven was the one that made me the most emotional. Like once we got to the end of the story, I was bawling my eyes out. I am a sucker for Flowers in the Attic, just because that was the very first one that I read. And it was the first chapter book, like big kind of grown up chapter book that I read. So it kind of introduced me into the world of chapter books and got me hooked on reading.
It made you want to go to the Scholastic Book Fair.
Well, I was already going to those, but I was like more of a, let me pick up this little fun book, like, nothing too intimidating. I had told my stepdad that I wanted to like start reading bigger books, and he just randomly bought me Flowers in the Attic for my birthday, and I was like, this is a thick book, and I put it up on the shelf, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. And then I just randomly ended up watching the movie the original Flowers of the Attic movie, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the book that my stepdad bought me. I need to see the red, like I want to know the real details. And I ended up reading it, like started reading it that night at like 4 o'clock in the morning. But I was definitely intimidated by by how big it was, and so I was used to reading like my little was that Amelia Bedelia and the little, a couple chapters, nothing too big kind of books. I was kind of holding myself back from jumping into the bigger books, but that definitely opened up my world. I was like, this is crazy, and I had to read more of them.
Well, and where can we pre-order Double Dutch Queen right now? Where can we find it?
Yeah, so you can pre-order Double Dutch Creams at Borders. Why did I say Borders? Barnes and Nobles. Borders is not even a store anymore. Barnes and Nobles. And then right off the Macmillan website. And on my website, I have a page that has all of my books, and it has a link to purchase Double Dutch Queen. So really anywhere, Amazon, Target, anywhere books are sold, it's available.
Can you remind people where they can find you online?
Yes, at Delishy Art across all socials.
Well, DeAnn, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about books, VC Andrews, and your fictional couple Crush. Everyone, you can find all that information below. I'm going to link it so you can go buy the book. And until next time, as always, keep crushing it. Crushgasm is part of the I Did Not Make These Rankings podcast network, along with some other pretty cool shows, including An Evening at the Movies, Crime Rewind, Literature Reapers, Love is Black, Masturbators, Men Are the Prize, Season to Season, The Sip List, and Toontastic Journeys. You can go to idnmtrpodcastnetwork.blog to find not only Crushgasm, but all of the aforementioned really cool podcasts. Alrighty.